I just don't enjoy wasting my time studying for them.
All right, so fill in your info here. We will be turning this in for points like we do other days, other times on homework. Okay, first question you should ask yourself, is it a parabola? Is this first one a parabola?
Yes.
How can you tell?
One scout.
Only one squared. It's the easiest shape to look for. So this one is the parabola. Okay, next one, ask yourself the same thing. Is this a parabola? Why is it not a parabola?
Two squares.
Two squares. No parabolas have two squares. So that leaves a circle, an ellipse, or a hyperbola. What's the second shape I tell you to look for? Hyperbola. Why? After you scratch out parabola, hyperbola, because that's the only one that has two squares where one is negative. It doesn't matter if they're both like 3 and -3 or 5 and -5. As long as one is negative, it's a hyperbola. So we said no to parabola. Is this a hyperbola?
Yeah.
Yes. Why is it a hyperbola?
Because there's one negative, positive. And squares.
There's two squares and one's positive and one's negative. All right. Next one, is this a parabola?
No, it is not.
No, because there's two squares. Is it a hyperbola?
No, it is not.
No, because they're not, one of them's not negative. That leaves circle or an ellipse. Which one is it and why?
Gonna have to go with ellipse. Different coefficients.
Because the coefficients are different, you're going with ellipse. That's what makes it more oblong in one direction than the other, not uniform all the way around, because those numbers are different. All right, what about this next one? Is it a parabola?
No.
No, because there are two squares. Is it a hyperbola?
No, it is not.
No, because they're not one negative, they're both positive. Between an ellipse or a circle, which one is it?
Circle.
Circle, and why?
Circling. Both two squares. Same thing.
Leading coefficients. What if this was 2x squared and negative 2y squared?
Hyperbola.
It would still be a hyperbola. It doesn't matter if they're the same. One is negative, it's a hyperbola. All right, yes. Does everybody see why it's a parabola, hyperbola, ellipse, and a circle? All right, next one. Find the equation of the asymptotes. What I'm hoping you guys can do here is do it without graphing. Remember, this is the form.
That's 0, 0.
Yes? And what do we always use for the point? I just wrote it down when we went over the quiz. The point is the center. And what is the center in this problem?
0, 0.
The center is 0, 0. Do you guys agree with that? Yes or no?
I disagree with 0, 0.
Yes. All right. What is the M? What did we just say earlier? Plus or minus?
Rise over run.
Rise over run. And which one? How far am I going to rise and run on this one? Which one is my rise? The X or the Y?
And why?
So how far am I going to rise? Over. How far am I going to run? 2. All right, so Y minus 0 is just Y. Equals plus or minus what over what? 5 over 2. And then X minus 0 is just X, so you leave it like this. I often have kids ask, is it okay if we put the zeros in? Does anybody feel that way, like you would write it with Y minus 0 and X minus 0? Totally fine. But if it's multiple choice, should you recognize that this is the same thing? Yeah, so if you're writing it on your own, heads up off the desk, if you're writing it on your own, I'm okay if you put Y minus 0 equals plus or minus 5/2 X minus 0. Totally fine with that. Open response, no, you put it this way. You did get a copy, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Next one, number 3. What is the vertex? I'm going to have you guys go ahead and find that now. What is the vertex? We ready? Vertex 2, 5. Anybody get that?
No.
It is wrong. But I waited purposely because a lot of kids make that mistake. Did anybody do that accidentally? And it's okay if you did. Why do you think kids make that mistake?
Because X is normally
Right, because we're used to doing opposite same, which I did, but the opposite usually goes in the X spot. But in this case, it goes in the
Y spot.
Y spot, which means the outside goes in the X spot. Be careful with that, because what happens if you're graphing and you mess up on the vertex or the center?
You get a flip.
Flip, the whole graph is off, all your little answers on the side are off,
Means you get like 8 points wrong.
and
It's such
it's
a small mistake.
a lot of points missed. Okay, questions. Number 4, equation for the axis of symmetry. Can anybody do that without any work and just know what it is? Yes.
It's -5.
Okay, -5. So is it x equals -5 or y equals?
X equals -5.
Okay, can you tell me how you knew that?
Because it's y equals x squared, so
Mhm.
it's vertical,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just find the vertex, and it's the center going down where
Good.
the vertex is.
Okay, so without graphing, I'm going to sketch it just so you can see what he was saying. He said because it's y equals and its x is being squared, it's going to be vertical, meaning opening up or down. Do you agree? Yes or no? And then he said, so you look at the vertex, and the vertex is what? -5, 2? Do you agree? And it's opening up. It doesn't matter the direction it's opening. And he said the LOS is also going to be vertical, and its x equals what? -5. Does that make sense? Okay. Without graphing. Now, I had a kid do it different than the way I would explain it. He said, so if it's y equals, your LOS is going to be x equals. So it's always opposite. Sure, if that's the way you think of it. I look here. What's the opposite of +5? And what letter's in there with the +5? So it's x equals -5. Is it always going to work that way? Oh, so what would be the equation for the axis of symmetry here? Y is equal to 2. If you just put 2, would I mark it wrong?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, yes I would. Y equals 2, x equals -5. Questions on 1, 2, 3, or 4 so far? All right, next one. Number 5. How many times does a conic intersect the x-axis? I just did these type of problems today with my Math 2 kids. So this is review. With them, we just did the basics. We just did the basics.
Look at this one. We already had it. What's this? Okay.
All right. So let's do our translations. This is a vertical translation or a, I'm saying it wrong. Is this a horizontal translation or a vertical translation? Horizontal, which way? To the right 5? Is there a horizontal, is there a vertical one going up and down, up or down?
There's not.
So it's like this. In which direction is it opening?
Onward and upward.
Upward. And how many times does the conic intersect? Now, intersect does not mean it has to go through. It can just touch and bounce. It's an x-axis pretty much. An x-intercept, sorry. How many x-intercepts do I have here? 1. Do you agree? So how many times is this? Oh, conic. Do we all know what conic is? A lot of my other kids were like, what's that? Conic are the 4 shapes we have, which is a circle, parabola, ellipse, and hyperbola. All right, how many times? Once.
How would you get a parabola of a cone?
I keep saying I'm going to look it up, and I haven't. I will after these, and I'll show it to you.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense. It
No.
seems like it would stop at the line.
If you cut it in half.
Yeah, but if you
Like
cut
that.
it
Then it wouldn't
straight
be
down.
infinitely long. It wouldn't keep going on like that. Parabola.
Right.
It's not supposed to.
Dream me. The girl goes on.
Okay, let's finish it, and then I'll show it to you. And maybe I'll put it up here for everyone to see. All right,
That makes sense.
this one. Which way am I shifting? or translating? Horizontally, which way? Right 2 down 4. And which way am I opening because it's positive? Up or down? Up. And I don't care what the x-intercepts are. All I care about is how many do I have. How many do I have? 2. So, how many times does the conic intersect the x-axis? Once, twice, or not at all? Twice. All right, and the last one. Which way am I translating? Horizontally?
Yes.
How far horizontally?
3, 2.
To the right, left, up, well, right or left. Do you guys agree it's right 3? And how far, what does the 5 tell me?
How far up you go?
How far up I'm going? And which direction is this parabola opening? Up or down? All right, and how many x-intercepts do I have here? None. So how many times does the conic intersect the x-axis? Never, none, not at all. Any one of those answers I would accept. Are these the 3 possibilities we have for parabolas for x-intercepts? Either 2, 1, or none? Yes. The maximum is going to be twice. That's the maximum. A parabola never wraps around and comes back and intersects more. Once, in this case, or never. All right, questions on 5. Okay, what is the formula for the eccentricity and what does it tell you about an ellipse? E equals, I want you to write down what you think it is right now. Anybody remember?
C over A or C over B?
C over A or C over B. What does it depend on?
Which one's bigger?
Which one's bigger? And it's not the A squared, B squared, it's the AB. So once you square root the denominators. And C is your focal length. All right. And what does it tell you about an ellipse? First off, good, you are correct. First off, eccentricity is also in between what 2 numbers? It's always between 0 or 0 and 1. Bigger than 0, smaller than 1. Okay, now it depends on how large it is or how small it is. The larger the number, the smaller the number. Does anybody remember which one of these is more circle-like? One of them is more stretched out. Which one's more circle-like, the larger number or the smaller? Smaller. The smaller your eccentricity, the more circular it is. More like a circle. And larger numbers are more what?
More stewy head.
More stewy head? More stretched out. Okay. Now, types of questions they're going to ask you. They're not going to ask you to find the eccentricity and then tell whether it's more circular or more oval. They're going to give you a list of numbers, a bunch of decimals. And they may ask you which one is closest to a circle or more like a circle. Would it be the larger decimals or the smaller decimal? The smallest decimal is going to be more like a circle. What if they ask you which one's more stretched out? Would that be the larger or the smaller?
The biggest one.
The biggest one. Got it? Okay, questions?
I also don't understand how you did a hyperbola out of the cone.
I know, I was going to look almost, not just the one. Not just the one.
I'm thinking about that part.
Okay. Are we good?
Ask a question. How do you get a hyperbola?
I will show you
I
all
didn't
of
get
it.
a waft this out.
We don't. That's why that's not a conic section. All right, find the focus. Now, I am visual, so I like to do a rough sketch of my graph to find things. Now, if I had to, could I do without? Most certainly. But if I'm taking my time and I want to show more work, I definitely would sketch it. How many of you are not like that? Like you can do without the graph, you could do most of it in your head? How many of you like the graphs and like it helps you visualize it and see it on your paper? You do what works best for you. I'm going to go ahead and sketch it. And we'll talk about on some other ones, like when you don't have to or don't want to. But there's somewhere you're required to sketch. All right, which way does this move? Which direction? Or what's the vertex?
Right 2 up 5.
Okay, I heard right 2 up 5.
Yeah.
In which direction is it opening? Up or down or right or left? Down because it is negative and the x is being squared. Yes? Okay, and they're asking for the focus, not focus and directrix, just the focus. Which direction will I move? Up or down? Right or left? Down. Do I just randomly pick a number how far down I want to go?
I mean,
No.
good, but could be wrong.
Focal length formula for a parabola is 1 over 4 absolute value of A. I had kids ask, well, why is it different from this formula, the focal length and this one and that one? It's different for every shape. Okay, C equals 1 over 4 times, what's the absolute value of A? C equals 1 over, what's 4 times 1/8? Is that 4/8? What is 4/8 reduced to? Which is C, 1 times the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 1/2? So in the end, what is C?
2.
So if I was graphing the whole thing, I would go up 2 for the directrix and down 2 for the focus. Do you agree? Yes? So what is that ordered pair when I went down 2 from the vertex, which was 2, 5? 2, 3?
Yes.
Yes? Any questions on that one? None? Does it make sense? No questions? All right, next one. What shape is this? Okay, let's go in order. Is it a parabola? No, because there's 2 squares. Is it a hyperbola? No, because the 2 signs are positive. Circle or an ellipse? These leading coefficients are same or different, which means it must be what? An ellipse. Okay, are we ready? So, oh, is it in the right form, the correct form? What do I divide by, 925 or 225? Divide by 225. That's now a 1. 9 becomes 1, and then 225 becomes what? 9 goes into 225 how many times? 25. And then plus y plus 1 squared over 25 becomes 1, and 225 becomes 9. And all of that equals 1. Would you guys like me to show this one with the graph or without? Without? You want to see it with? Okay. I'm going to show, I'll show both ways. I'll show without first, since I usually do with the graph. So those of you that are kind of not sure, you can see which way you like better. Okay. First thing I need to find either way is the center. What's the center for this particular problem? 2, okay. Regardless of whether I graph or not, I have to find the focal length, because the focal length tells me where the focus is. C equals a squared plus b squared or minus b squared if this is plus here. Minus, which means I need absolute value.
Wait,
but
it's not C squared.
It is. I just put it in there. Sorry.
That really worried me.
Sorry. C squared.
I was doing it wrong.
No. Before I go further, I don't usually use absolute value, and I just do what? Big minus small. You can put absolute value, but I like to just get rid of it. 25 minus 9. C equals the square root of, what's 25 take away 9?
16.
So C equals 4. All right. Now here is where I would do it in my head. Are you ready? If you don't like it, I'm going to show you the graph in just a little bit. Okay. First off, what do we know about an ellipse? What determines where your vertices and your foci? Major axis or the letter that comes first? Major axis. Which one's major, X or Y? X. Which means my vertices and foci are running which direction? Left, right, because that's the way the x-axis runs. Do you guys see that?
Wait, so for ellipse, it's the one that, like, the bottom is bigger?
Yes.
That one?
That's your major axis, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that. With an ellipse, it's the major axis, not what letter comes first. And since 25 is bigger than 3, that means my major axis is going this way, correct? Now, listening. If I'm running right and left to find my foci from the center, what's changing, the x or the y? The x. So 2 plus or minus, what's the focal length? 4, negative 1. The only thing is, I do not want you leaving it like this, unless if it was 2 plus or minus root 3, negative 1, leave it. But plus or minus 4, you can actually work that out. What's 2 plus 4?
I don't know if I can.
What's 2? 6, negative 1.
I mean, that was a leap of faith for me.
And 2 minus 4 is what? Negative 2, negative 1. And that there are your foci. How many of you feel like I like it that way much better? How many of you feel like, no way, I need the graph? Okay, I'm going to show you with the graph, because that's, again, the way my brain works. I like to see it, what happened. Oh. What time were you supposed to?
Oh, it's regular show.
Okay. All right. Okay. So here goes the graph. Are you guys ready? Okay. What was the center? 2, negative 1? Okay, from the center, how far right and left am I going? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't make it big enough. How far up and down am I going? 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and make your ellipse. And sorry. Because it's an ellipse, everything is determined by the major axis. In which way is the major axis? Right and left or up and down? Right and left. So if I'm moving right and left to find the foci, which I'm just going to approximate right here for now. If I'm moving right and left, which value from the center is changing, the x or the y? X. And what was the center? 2, negative 1? All right, then we do that. The c squared equals a squared minus b squared, absolute value. We do all the work. When we did it earlier, what did we get? C equals 4. So from the center, I'm going to go right and left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What is this as an ordered pair? 1, 2, 3, 4. What is that as an ordered pair? Negative 2, negative 1. And that is right there. And what is that as an ordered pair? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bless you, 6, negative 1. Is that correct? All right. Got it? So you choose graph, no graph. Now on the ones where it says sketch the graph, do you have to show the graph? Of course, you have to. On the ones where it didn't say that, it's totally your choice. Okay, questions on this one? Let's flip over. And here's another foci question because there's more than one. What shape is this? First off, is it a parabola if there's two squares? Yes or no? No, it's not a parabola. Next thing I ask, is it a hyperbola? Yes or no? Why is it a hyperbola? One of them is negative, which means it should equal 1. What do I divide by? 16/9 or 144? All right, and then we reduce x minus 2 quantity squared over, anybody know that one, what 144 divided by 16 is? 9. Good, and then y minus y plus 5 quantity squared over 16 equals 1.
Is it always kind of work out that way to like where
Those are
it's
flip-flops.
flipped?
When they're nice ones where you have to graph, yes, but we've had a few of them that we did in notes that were not.
So
But-
that was just a coincidence?
Well, no, it's when they come out nice where they're both perfect squares, typically, yes, that's going to happen. Is that like 100% fact? No. But it works out that way. All right. Are we good? Ladies, gentlemen, let's make sure we're paying attention. Okay, this one I'm definitely going to sketch for 2 reasons. For those of you that like the sketch and to practice, because it's a hyperbola and it's been a while. If you don't like to sketch, you can try without. All right, what is the center? Positive 2, comma. Now, kids often ask, do I distribute the negative? No, that negative has no impact on your center. That negative just tells you it's a hyperbola. All right, over 2, down 5. Yes or no? All right, how far right and left? The 3 or the 4 tells me how far right and left. Which one? X runs right and left, so how far right and left? 3 or 4? What was that? 3. 1, 2, 3. And how far up and down? How far up and down? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we make the ellipse or the rectangular dotted shape. Good.
So I don't understand how you know which way they go minus.
Okay, I was just going to ask that. Good question. So, what determines the direction it opens? The major axis or what comes first? What comes first? Okay, so where is the major axis used? On which shape? An ellipse. An ellipse, everything runs on the major axis. Your vertices, your foci, everything runs the major axis. Do you see that? So this is determined by which comes, not by which comes first, by which one's bigger. So let me show you that here. Because the major axis is right and left, that means the x, underneath the x value is bigger. And is that the case here? Yeah, because that's bigger, that means the major axis is running right and left. So what if this was the 9 and this was the 25? Which direction would the major axis be running? Up and down, and everything would have changed. Okay, with the hyperbola, what determines? Bless you. Major axis or what comes first?
So whatever first.
Whatever comes first. So it has nothing to do with the major axis, and that's a mistake kids often make. They will they will say, oh, it opens more up and down, and Mrs. Torreson made your axis, so it's up and down. No, what comes first here, X or Y? X, so which direction is it opening? Right and left. All right. Which means my vertices are where? Right and left or up and down? Right and left. All right, are we good? All right, so question here is actually the foci. Which direction are my foci? Right and left or up and down? Right and left. Why are the foci right and left? Because X comes first. If Y came first, everything would go up and down. All right, if I'm running right and left from my center, what's changing, the X or the Y? When I shift right and left, what changes, the X or the Y? The X. So 2 plus or minus a blank, comma, and the Y value is going to stay -5. Do you agree? I'm just going to guesstimate for now. I'm just going to put them in there. They're inside the cups. How do I find...
Thank you.
You're welcome. What do I do to find the length I'm going to move right and left? C squared equals A squared B squared plus or minus, if this here is a minus, plus. What's 9 plus 16? Square root of 25 is... So I'm going to go right and left 5 from the vertices or from the center? Center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so just off a smidge. And 1, excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, are we good? Okay, so how far right and left did I move? What goes in this blank? 2 plus or minus what? 5. And all I ask is you do not leave it like this. You only leave it like that if you end up with the radical. 5 is not a radical, it's a rational number. So work it out. And I've run out of room, so I'm going to move it up here. What's 2 plus 5? That's that one there. 7 comma, how far down did I go? -5, good. And then my other point is right here. What's 2 minus 5? -3 comma what? -5, good job. And that there are your foci. Make sense? Heads up off the desk. Do you guys want to try the next one on your own? Just have me keep going through. Keep going through. All right, I put this one on here because most kids know how to complete the square, but they forget how to do it for a parabola because there's only one squared. Are we ready? Okay. Now, when we do this, here are the steps. You get the letter that's squared by itself. What letter is being squared here, X or Y? So get the Y's by itself. Y squared is going to pair up with what? 6Y. And what am I going to do with the 5X and the 11 since they have no Y variable on it? Move it to the other side. All right, positive 5X and plus 11. Now, what am I going to do on the left-hand side? What's that process called? Complete the square. Before I complete, I need to first check if there's leading coefficient. Is there a leading coefficient to factor out? No. Should I factor out a Y? Never factor out your variables because then you can't complete the squared. Y squared plus 6Y plus blank equals 5X plus 11 plus blank. What goes in the first blank? 9. And since there's no number to multiply on the outside, what goes in your other blank? What is it? 9. And then what do I do here? This, the quadratic squared factor, we double bubble. Y and y minus minus or plus plus? Plus plus and plus plus what? 3. 5x plus, these two are the like terms. What's 5x plus 9? I'm sorry, it's 11 plus 9. Louder? 20. Okay, do you guys agree I can write this as quantity squared? That's the way that's the whole reason why we complete the squares, to be able to write it as quantity squared. Yes? Now, after we've completed the square, what's the next step? To get what letter by itself? To isolate the x or isolate the y? Now we're going to try to get x by itself. After you've completed the square, you get the non-square piece by itself. I had some kids factor out the 5 first, which is fine, and I had some kids subtract the 20 first, which is fine. Which method would you like me to show? Subtract the 20. And I'm going to put the minus 20 at the end. So y plus 3 quantity squared minus 20 equals 5x. I'm trying to get the x by itself, so what do I divide both sides by? Nobody knows? 5. 5 and 5. And I want to write that as an a, as a coefficient. So instead of y plus 3 squared over 5, I write it, good job, as 1/5 y plus 3 squared minus 4 equals x. And that there is the form I want. It says standard form, but it should say vertex form. Questions on that one? Again, most people know how to do the harder ones. They struggle on the easier one only because we don't do it as much, but we should know how to do it. Got it? Next one, find the center and radius given this. Okay, obviously it says radius, and the only shape that has a radius is a what?
Circle.
Can you guys tell that it is a circle by looking here? If I didn't give you any of this and asked you the shape, could you tell it's a circle? There's 2 squares, and they're both positive. And the leading coefficients are the same. Good. All right, so x squared, what goes next? Plus 12x plus y squared minus 8y equals what?
Equals -44.
Thank you, -44. All right, the next thing I check is there a leading coefficient to factor out? This is a y. Is there a leading coefficient to factor out of either the x squared or the y squared? No, so I'm going to go straight to complete the square. X squared plus 12x plus blank plus y squared minus 8y plus blank equals -44 plus how many blanks?
2.
All right.
36 and 16.
Okay, she said 36 and 16. Does anybody agree or disagree? Okay, I heard I agree. 12 cut in half is 6 and square is?
36.
-8 cut in half is -4 and square is?
16.
Are there any numbers to multiply on the outside of either one? No, so this is plus 36 plus 16. Go ahead and continue. All right, y minus what? Oh, excuse me. I just went ahead and wrote it as quantity squared. Does anybody want me to show the double bubble first? No? All right. So this goes into x plus 6 and x plus 6. This would become what? Y I heard somebody
Or
whisper it.
minus
-4
four.
and -4, so I can write that as quantity squared. Anybody have what this is? 8. Is this the form I was asking for? Actually, I didn't ask for a form. I asked for the center and radius. Do I need to have it in this form in order to find the center and the radius? Yes?
Isn't it 24? Because negative 44 plus 36 plus 16.
Negative 44 plus 36 plus 16.
No.
Is it? Okay. You got it? Uh-huh. All right. What is the center? Opposite, opposite, because they're both in parentheses. What is it? -6 what? And the radius is 8 or the square root of 8? Which is what root what?
2.
2 root 2. Oh, it's multiple choice. Okay, are we good? Next one. Next, okay. Before I go any further, I did have a question in my morning class, like where did you get the root 8? It's always the square root of this is. So if this equaled 25, what would your radius be?
5.
5. If it equaled 36, what would your radius be?
6.
6. If it equaled 7, what would your radius be?
Root 7.
Root 7. All right, on number 10, I'm going to have you plot those points, the vertices and the foci. Go ahead and do that now. All I want is to plot the points. All right. Okay, I always put stars for my foci. Do you guys agree I plotted those properly? Yes or no? Vertices, foci. All right, now I did not tell you the shape. We know it's not as a circle because circles don't have foci, nor do parabolas. Parabolas have a focus, but not a foci. So, the only thing it could be is an ellipse or hyperbola. Can anybody tell me just by looking at this picture whether it's an ellipse or hyperbola, and how can you tell?
I think that it's a hyperbola because of the little stars after it.
Because of where the stars are. Do you guys agree with her? Okay, she is correct. She said, I think it's a hyperbola because of where the stars are. Can anybody give more explanation about the stars? Like where would they be if it was an ellipse?
They're not inside.
They're not inside. So if I had sketched them and they were like right here, I would say it's an ellipse. But since they're outside, I would say it is a hyperbola. A hyperbola that opens which direction? Away from each other. In this case, that would be up and down. Yes or no? Okay, before I go any further, just from the 2 points, I can tell not only is it a hyperbola, but the hyperbola is opening up and down. Okay, so if I had, let's just say I plotted points like here, and my stars were here, what would that tell me about the shape? Ellipse or hyperbola? An ellipse, and the major axis would be right and left or up and down? I can tell that because that's where the vertices and the foci are running. Does that make sense? Okay. In this case, which one comes first, the x or the y? Which one? The y. Why? How do we know that y is coming first? Louder? It's opening up and down. What I want you to do right now is find the center. Go ahead and count, or use your midpoint formula, x plus x cut in half, y plus y cut in half.
For the point, that's at 5. Is that 5 or 1?
That's 5-2. All right, anybody find the center? No one has it? 5, -3. I heard one person say that. Does everyone else agree or disagree?
I agree.
Dominic, agree or disagree?
Agreed.
Not sure because you were sleeping.
Disagree to agree.
You would disagree to agree? All right. 5, 1, 2, 3. Can you tell me how you found it? Counted. Did anybody else count their way? Excuse me. Did anybody use midpoint? Yeah? You add up the x's. You do x1 plus x2 and then cut it in half. y1 plus y2 and cut in half. Does it matter? Does it matter? Does it matter which set you use, the vertices or the foci? It doesn't, because the center is right in the middle of either one. Do you agree? I'm going to use the foci just because. What's 5 plus 5?
10.
Cut in half.
5.
What's 5 plus -11?
6.
-6? -6 cut in half. Did it work? What about this one? 5 plus 5 is 10. Cut in half is 5. 2 plus -8 is -6 cut in half. Either way, or you just count the way Yvette did. All right. With that being said, I kept asking. I don't know if I verified, but I said we know what letter comes first. We all said yes. What letter comes first and why? What did you guys say earlier? Y is coming first, and why is the y value coming first?
Because the shapes of the graph look like 2 Y's.
Because of the shape of the graph look like 2 y's. Yes and yes. Because it's opening up and down is y. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, where do I figure out these values? Right here I use the center. This is the y, so be careful. I don't look at the x, I look at the y. So y minus -3 would be what?
5 plus 3.
Squared, and then x minus 5 quantity squared. All right, what other piece? There's only one other piece that I know to my function here. The b value or the a value? Okay, now I heard a few of you say b, but not only b, you couldn't see her, but she did this. B. Can you tell me how you know b?
Because it's going B, it's not going that way.
Okay, she said it's not going this way, it's going up and down. And up and down is always B, and right and left is always A. Is it the center to the star or the center to one of the vertices? The center to the star is the focal length. I'm looking for B. That's the center to the one of the vertices. Does it matter which one? No, you can use distance formula or you can count. It's not C, sorry, you said it was B. Count it, what is it? I know. Five. Does it matter if you count downward or upward? Should it be the same either way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they have negatives.
Right. Okay. If b is 5, where do I put the 25? Under x or under y? Does everybody agree with that? Yes? Okay. Now, I do not have any markings on my graph to tell me how far right and left. What do I have to do on my side work over here? C squared equals a squared. It's minus here, so this is plus. Because it's plus, do I need an absolute value? Because it's plus, does it matter if it's big or small first? No. Okay, so what is C? I don't even have C anywhere on my paper. What the heck? What is it?
Is it the center?
The center, that's the length, focal length. C is the center to,
the star.
okay, to the star. 1 over 4a is for what shape? Parabola. Yes. C squared equals a squared plus b squared is what we use here. C is always the length from your center to either star. It doesn't matter which one. What is it in this case? Tell me when you have it. And that was not it.
Oh, no, really?
It was 8. Good job. Thank you. Okay, if you count, you can see that it is 8. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so I have 8 squared equals a squared plus 5 squared.
Well, you have
And am I looking for a or a squared?
3 for
I'm looking for a squared. So you do not have to square root. It's okay if you do. It's not necessary. What do you get when you subtract? 39. I know, it's like, oh, I don't want to square root that. Do you have to square root it? No, a squared is 39. And you're not asked to graph this, so it's not like you have to go right and left, root, whatever root 39 is. 6 point something. You're done. Any questions? There was a lot in this problem. One, you had to know what the shape was, what direction it was, what came first. Find the center, find A, find C, find D, and so forth. Questions? Definite on the test, by the way.
Can I just leave now?
Can we what?
Can I just leave now for this?
Okay. They'll be online.
Okay.
Okay, write the equation. The focus is located here in the directrix, and it tells you it's a parabola. Did it need to tell you it's a parabola if they gave you directrix and focus? No, it's the only shape that has a directrix. All right. Let's go ahead and plot 2, 3. Okay, 2, 3, and the directrix is x equals 8. Oh, this is a focus, so what should I put instead of a dot?
a star.
A star. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then at 8, I'm going to draw the directrix. X equals 8. Is x equals vertical or horizontal? X equals, those lines are vertical for x equals.
Yeah.
Oh, I meant vertical. I'm not
I know, I did that earlier as well. Okay, so there it is there.
It doesn't matter as long as I know how to draw it.
Does it matter, in this case, does it matter which direction you're opening? Or is there only one way you can open?
One way
There's only one way. Which direction is my parabola opening? If this is directrix,
to the left.
it's either right or left. And if this is the directrix and this is the focus, it must be opening left. How do I find the vertex? Can I count my way to the
Yes.
middle? Why? Because from the vertex, it's equidistant to the directrix and the focus. So that means the vertex is right in the center. So midpoint it, count your way through, or do a point, like put a point right here if you wanted to. That would be what, 8, 3. And then use midpoint formula again or count your way in. And tell me when you have it. I heard somebody whisper it way over there. 5, 3. 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's opening, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and it's opening to the left is what you guys said, yes? Okay. You didn't ask us for it, but what is the focal length? I may need it later. What is the focal length, or how do I find it? There's no center with a parabola, so what do you use as its center? Vertex. It's from the vertex to the star or the vertex to the line. Either way, can you count your length? What do you get? 3. C equals 3. If you count your way the other way, it's still 3. Do you agree? I know mine's not drawn to scale, but it's 3 either way. Yes? Okay. So, because it's sideways, is it y equals x squared or x equals y squared?
It's y squared.
Y squared. X equals a parentheses y minus k quantity squared plus h. I only write that in there because I had a few kids struggle with what was what. Okay, a we don't know, we're going to look for. Y minus, now when I look here at the vertex, will I minus the x value or the y value if it's with the y value in here? Y minus 5 or y minus 3?
Y minus 3.
Minus 3, which means the outside is the x value, so what do I put?
5.
Do you guys agree if I asked you for the vertex here, you would say opposite inside, outside same, you would put 5 comma 3, which is what the vertex is. Okay, do you see how it flip-flopped here, so be careful. All right, 2 ways I can find a point on the parabola or using the focal length formula. Did they give me a point on the parabola?
No.
No, so what do we use? Focal length formula, which is what for this problem? 1 over 4a. All right, do we know C already? I already found it. What is it? 3 equals 1 over 4a. I'll let you solve for a. Cross multiply or multiply both sides by 4a. All right, what do you get? A equals 1/12. Now, is this the one where the negative comes out on its own, or you have to look and think about it? You have to look and think. When does it come out on its own when you use a point? Is it positive 1/12 or negative? Why is it negative? Because it's opening to the left. Again, this is a definite on the test that kids tend to struggle with, so be careful. Are we good? Okay, we are running out of time, so are you guys okay if I start with the bottom and work my way up? Okay. Let's take a look at 13 first. Why is 13 a parabola? Because it has only 1 squared. I'm not going to ask you to graph a circle because that's too easy. 12 and 14. Which one's the ellipse and which one is the hyperbola, and how can you tell? This one's the ellipse, and the last one is the hyperbola. Why is it the hyperbola? Because it has a negative, a minus in between. All right. It didn't ask me for the center here, so I'm going to draw it here or write it here. Biggest mistake on the test for this problem is this. Kids go too fast, and can you see why they would make that mistake? But what happens when that one mistake is made? What happens to everything else? It's all wrong. Your graph and all of this. Okay, so what should your center be? Okay, it's still opposite, but x and then y, so be careful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down 2. How far right and left? Which one's right and left? The x or the y number at the bottom? X, because that's right and left. So how far right and left do I move? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. How far up and down according to the y value? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Do I make my ellipse or my box shape, my rectangular shape? Okay, this helps me for my asymptotes, and what do the asymptotes help me determine?
The width of your flow.
Yep, how wide or thin your hyperbola is going to be. All right, what do I look at? The major axis or the letter that comes first?
The one that comes first.
Yes, I do not look at the major axis ever for a hyperbola. I look to see what comes first. And what comes first? Why? What does that mean? Up and down or right and left?
Up and down.
Up and down. I often have kids say, oh, it's right and left because it's bigger. No, it's not. It's up and down because y comes first. All right, vertices are obviously where my hyperbola is at, which is right there, not the 2 points furthest apart. What are these 2 points right here? 5, 1 and 5, can you guys count really quick? -5. Foci are inside my cups. What do I have to first find those? C squared equals a squared plus or a squared minus?
Plus.
Plus b squared. C equals the square root of 9 plus 16. Can you guys go ahead and do that? 9 plus 16. What do you get?
Equals 5.
5. C equals 5. So from the center, not from the vertices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Should they be inside the cup?
Here.
All right. Those points are 5, is that 3? And then 5, -7. Transverse. Do you look at how long or how small the axes are for the transverse? No, it's not always going to be the largest. It's not always going to be the smallest. It's not always going to be right and left. It's not always going to be up and down. But it will always be the length between your vertices. What's the length between these two vertices here? If I went up 3 and down 3, 6 conjugates the non-vertices, so that's these 2 points right here. That is 8. And what do I use for my point for the equation of the asymptotes? I use the center. So y minus -2 would be y plus 2 plus or minus blank, and then x minus what? 5. And what do I use for my slope? Plus or minus b over a. How far up and down did I go? Over how far right and left did I go? 4ths. Plus or minus 3/4. Questions? Now I've run out of time, so I'm at least going to put the answers up so you can see them for the other ones. 12 and 13 are right there. You can take a look, take a picture if you'd like. I will post these up online later today.